So the reading today is from Luke. It's chapter 19, verses 11 through to 27. It's on page 1053 in the Church Bible, and it's called The Parable of the 10 Minas. While they were listening to this, he went on to tell them a parable, because he was near Jerusalem and the people thought that the kingdom of God was going to appear at once. He said, a man of noble birth went to a distant country to have himself appointed king and then to return. So he called 10 of his servants and gave them 10 minas. Put this money to work, he said, until I come back. But his subjects hated him and sent a delegation after him to say, we don't want this man to be our king. He was made king, however, and returned home. Then he sent for the servants to whom he'd given the money in order to find out what they had gained with it. The first one came and said, Sir, your mina has earned 10 more. Well done, my good servant, his master replied. Because you have been trustworthy in a very small matter, take charge of 10 cities. The second came and said, Sir, your mina has earned 5 more. His master answered, you take charge of 5 cities. Then another servant came and said, Sir, here is your mina. I have kept it laid away in a piece of cloth. I was afraid of you, because you are a hard man. You take out what you did not put in, and reap what you did not sow. His master replied, I will judge you by your own words, you wicked servant. You knew, did you, that I am a hard man, taking out what I did not put in, and reaping what I did not sow? Why then didn't you put my money on deposit, so that when I came back I could have collected it with interest? Then he said to those standing by, take away his mina from him, and give it to the one who has 10 minas. Sir, they said, he already has 10. He replied, I tell you that to everyone who has, more will be given. But as for the one who has nothing, even what he has will be taken away. But those enemies of mine who did not want me to be a king over them, bring them here and kill them in front of me. This is the word of the Lord.
So it's wonderful to have Fred and Gilbert with us again this morning. Fred is out sharing with the children, but Gilbert's here sharing with us this morning. Both from our twinned church in Eldoret, Kenya, King's Highway Church. And we've been really blessed to have them as part of St. James's family for the last 10 days or so, where we've shared and learnt and encouraged and challenged each other. So thank you again, Gilbert, for coming all that way to share with us. And this morning, as part of our occasional series of services, which we've entitled Eldoret Stories, we want to share about a ministry at King's Highway Church, the Seed Opportunity Fund. And the story of this fund is a story of vision, of a partnership, and a ministry that's bringing hope and dignity to people's lives at King's Highway Church, and is a testimony to the grace and guiding hand of God. So the place to start in this story is with Gilbert, really, and a vision that God gave to Gilbert at King's Highway Church. So Gilbert, would you like to come up and just briefly tell us about your vision?
Good morning, and praise the Lord. Maybe I would start by saying I've been given too much credit for something that many people have played a part in it. When I retired and came back to King's Highway, I used to work in Nairobi. The sermons in the year 2018, the sermons kind of prepared people to start, I would call it saving. And I remember Henry teaching and telling us and defining what to save means. He said saving is putting up something so that you'll use later. And he said when God saves us, he saves us so that he may be with us later. So it's something that has a future plan in it. So I approached the leadership and told them to kind of give me a chance to start a table banking initiative where people would come together and bring in money, save money into the initiative, and then give out the money as loans with a small interest. And then at the end of the year, we would share dividends. That's what I told them. And they told me, we'll arrange an audience with the members of the church, and you can tell them what you want to do. So I went before the church, the members, told them, and they discouraged me. They told me issues of money should not be rushed. Let us pray over it. And I came out discouraged because I thought that they would kind of back me up. So what happened is that I went and told the leadership that it's like I'm disappointed that I told them what was in my heart. So time passed. 3 months later, I think, 3 months later, I was called and told that God had answered my prayers. I asked how, and they told me there's some money that has come in, and I would be given full charge of the money without interference from the leadership, and then use the money to bring whatever I had thought to realization. And actually, that is how the Seed Opportunity Fund began. Now, the name itself, in fact, came from St. James, because St. James called the fund the Hardship and Opportunity Fund. So ours was just to add the seed in front. And we've seen God working in and through us to where we have reached.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you. So Gilbert had this vision, and it was unbeknownst to us as we were continuing to go out to visit, to learn and share with each other at King's Highway. But we were aware as we went out of there of the struggle that people had day by day just to provide for themselves and their families, for daily meals, for medical expenses, for the basics of life. And that wasn't due to any fault of themselves or a lack of effort, but more from a lack of opportunity, a lack of startup finance, and a lack of training. And also a lack of employment opportunities, because in Kenya, there aren't that many employers, so that the majority of people have to start up some kind of business, whatever it might be. They don't have any option but to try and make money themselves. There's no government benefits in Kenya or anything like that. So we spoke to the leaders of King's Highway Church, Francis and Henry, Fred and Gilbert, to see if we could partner with them in some way to address this need, but in a way that didn't make King's Highway Church dependent on St. James's Church, but it was a partnership, really, in addressing this issue which robbed people of their God-given dignity. And it was amazing that when we said that, we then heard that Gilbert had this vision, and it's just how those things match together. And one of the things that was said to me that I've learnt out in Kenya is God's vision, God's provision. And that was the case in this instance. It's not necessarily in our timing or in the way that we think, but if it is a God-given vision, he will provide. And that just shows across 6,000 miles how God was working in Gilbert and King's Highway and in our hearts as well. So we've had the real privilege in being part of this vision to develop a microfinance initiative by providing three years pump priming for this. And I think Julia's going to come up now and just tell us a little bit more about the detail of that. Thank you.
So there's a slide that's going to come up now, just to explain a little bit about how the Seed Opportunity Fund works. So to start with, anyone who wants money from this fund has to be an established member of King's Highway Church. And by that, King's Highway Church would mean that not only they come on a Sunday, but they're part of a small group and really part of the church. And then what people need to do is they need to join what's called a seed group. And they can either join an existing group or they can form their own group. And in each seed group, there's a maximum of 6 people. And these groups are really, really key to how the Seed Opportunity Fund is organised. So these groups meet once a week, and the idea is that people support each other in their businesses, so they get mutual support in these groups. Once you've been part of one of these groups, and you've gone to at least 4 meetings, so there's a sense of belonging and you've been accepted by the group, you can then put forward a business plan to Gilbert. And Gilbert will go through the business plan. You will complete a loan application form, and Gilbert will explain the terms and conditions and how the loan has to be repaid. In order to get a loan, you also must have saved money for 1 month. So you have to save money for 1 month. And the amount of money that you will be given in as a loan is 5 times the amount that you've saved. So if you saved £10, you could get £50, up to a maximum of £120. The loan is to be paid back within 6 months. And this is where the group's really important. And Andy, could you just put the next slide up? So these groups are really, really important, really integral into how the Seed Fund works. And you'll see some of the names of the groups and how many people are in these groups. Because all the repayments are made back into the group. The group is responsible for getting all the payments that everyone owes for that month and then paying them onto Gilbert. If somebody can't pay their loan, the other members of the group are responsible for paying their loan for that month. So there's real accountability and support within that group system. As well as paying back your loan amount, people are encouraged also to try and pay a bit extra each month, which acts and affects as savings. So that is held for them, and at the end of the loan period, when they've paid all the loan off, they can either take the savings back and have that as a lump of money, or they can use that amount to put forward for another loan. So basically, people are encouraged to save as well. And there's 2 types of loans. So the first loan is what they're called the Seed Opportunity Loan, which is for people when they get the first loan. But if you manage to pay back your first loan within 6 months, you're then eligible for what they're calling a second level loan. And in that loan, you can loan more money. So it's for people who have known that they've managed to pay back a loan. They can then get another loan, and they can get a loan then up to £550. So they can get a much, much bigger loan if they've paid back that money. Could we just have the next slide, Andy, which has got a whole host of figures on? So as Mark said, St James's Church has pump primed the fund, and we committed £2,000 a year for 3 years. And that money is to be fundraised and has been fundraised for teams going out to Kenya. So I think probably most of you will remember who were here last year. We did Road to Eldoret as fundraising, And from that fundraising, £2,000 went to the seed fund. This year, the team going out will raise the last £2,000 that will go into that fund. And what I think is really interesting is how this fund's grown. So Gilbert was saying to me that if everybody who has loans now paid back the money and there were no defaults, there would now be £8,500 in the fund. So each time there's more and more money to lend out. And I think what we're going to do now is we're going to share a little bit about 3 people who have had money from the seed fund. Because I think once you hear people's stories, it becomes real life. So Mark's going to come and talk about Titus.
Thank you. Yes, if you could just put the video, and we've got a bit of video of when we went out. We had the privilege of meeting with Titus, sharing with him, praying with him. So Titus is a fabricator. He makes metal gates and doors and window grates. And he and his wife lead a small group at King's Highway Church called Lower Bethel. And that group is twinned with a Lighthouse small group at St. James's. And just a little bit about Titus's background. He's the 6th of 13 children. He's married to Lillian and has 1 son. Now, Titus's father, his family background is sort of interesting, really. Titus's father had 3 wives, and Titus's own mother was Roman Catholic, but Titus's father never went to church, and his father had significant health problems and sought healing in lots of different places from lots of different people, but nothing changed for him. But one day, Titus's father met an evangelist who prayed for him, and he was physically healed. And at that point, he gave his life to Christ. And this evangelist went on to visit Titus's family every week to pray for them and pray with them. And within 5 months, the whole of the family had given their lives to Christ. So when Titus finished primary school, there wasn't enough money in the family for him to go to secondary education. So for 2 years, he just stayed at home, just being around the house. But then eventually he got an opportunity to get some work, and he began working with a welder. And for the next 13 years, he worked as a sort of apprentice, really, learning his trade. And finally, he decided to start in business on his own. And eventually he was able to afford to buy a few tools for that business. So when the Seed Opportunity Fund began at King's Highway, Titus applied to join the scheme. And he says he's really seen God's hand in this, that he's joined the King's Harvesters Loan Group, and he's been given a loan of £120. And he now rents a small workshop just outside King's Highway Church on the main highway to Uganda. And it's great. We were able to visit him there a whole number of times and spend some time with him. And so when he receives an order, he'll go to a customer's house and measure up, and he can make a door in a day. And it's amazing how resourceful he is in the materials that he uses, in the tools that he uses. So much we can learn from that. But there are challenges for him. There are challenges for him in terms of a customer base, in terms of people knowing where he is and building a customer base. But that's Titus and Lillian, who's benefited from the Seed Opportunities Fund, and who is a wonderful brother.
So now I'm going to tell you about Christine. Christine, as you can see, has a hair salon. She is 35, she has 3 children, and she's had her hairdressing salon for the past 10 years. And she is part of King's Highway Church. She's also part of Lower Bethel Small Group, which is twinned with the St. James's Small Group Lighthouse. And Christine says from a very early age, she loved to plait hair. And she taught herself at every opportunity to plait hair and practice plaiting and braiding her hair. And then for Christine, in her education, what happened was that due to lack of family finances, there was no money to pay for school fees when she was in high school, so she had to drop out of high school. And her passion was for hair braiding, so she set up a little business braiding hair. And I just want to tell you, that is not fast-forwarded. That is the speed that she was braiding the hair. And so when the Seed Fund was introduced in church, Christine saw the opportunity to expand her business. And she joined a group of ladies called Ladies of Vision. Love that name. And took out a loan of £120. And she used that loan to buy hair extensions. She wanted to extend what she could do in a hairdressing salon. So she now has a stock of hair extensions. And I think one of the things that really struck us, we went to visit Christine's shop. It was amazing. We were in there for about an hour. We were absolutely fascinated. The difference culturally between a hairdresser's here and a hairdresser's in Kenya. So she buys her hair extensions, one hair extension for 45 pence and sells it for 52 pence. So 7 pence profit on each hair extension. And when we were watching her braid a little girl's hair, and we were asking her how long it would take to braid the little girl's hair, who sat just amazingly still. And it takes about an hour to braid a little girl's hair, and for that she charges 80 pence. A lady came in to have her hair blow dried and straightened. She used loads of different oils, and then the hairdresser and the steam to straighten her hair, and she went out looking absolutely beautiful. That was about an hour's work, and for that she charged 80 pence. So I think just for us to sort of have a bit of an understanding about maybe how much things cost. Christine has paid off all her loan within the 6 months. And now what she wants to do is have one of these second-tier loans. So she wants to get a bigger loan now, so she wants to buy a new blow dryer, and she wants to buy a flat iron, which is used for straightening hair. So, yeah, just how it was interesting, because she had quite an established business, but actually how that extra bit of money has then enabled her to really, really extend her business. So that was Christine. And then we've got one more person to share with you, who is David. Now, actually, people probably, because I think when we first started talking about the Seed Fund, David was one of the people we had. So as you can see, David makes chapatis, the most amazing chapatis. He is 23. He was the eldest in his family of 6 children. When he was very young, his father left and never came back. And David had to leave school at about age 12 or 13 because there was no money available for school fees. And then, because of disagreements and difficulties at home, he left home and he lived on the streets. And that's where he said that he started to use drugs and alcohol, basically as a way of surviving. And then one day, a friend invited him to church. And he was saying that as the pastor was preaching, he really felt God was speaking to him. And then at the end of the service, someone gave a word of knowledge, saying that there's a young man in the church who has had a major disagreement with their parents, and that God wanted to speak to them. And he knew that was him. And he came forward then, and he gave his life to Jesus. And he's then said that God really started moving in his life. So his mom had run a small cafe when he was little, so he knew how to prepare food and he knew how to cook chapatis. So he set up his own chapati business. And he used the loan. He had a loan of £75 from the Seed Fund. And he used that loan to buy the stove that he's cooking the chapatis on and some of the other equipment to make the chapatis. And he has a stall on a side street just at the side of King's Highway Church. And this is a major way that students use to get up to university. So he sells his chapatis mainly to students. He needs to sell, I think each chapati costs 10 pence. And he needs to get £7 worth each day to make his business work. On quiet days, he says he only gets about £3. And when he was talking, it really profoundly affected Mark and I, actually. We went to a small group that he's part of, and just that total belief and trust in God, that God is going to provide for him, God is going to help him, God is there for him. And I think what really struck me when we went to his small, which meets on a Friday evening, is that he wasn't at his chapati stall, he was at his small group. Because his business runs from 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. every evening when the most traffic is going, people are walking past. But for him, it was more important to be in his small group than making money selling his chapatis. And that really challenged me. That actually for him, God is the number one thing, and putting God first is the most important thing that he's going to do. He also loves singing, and he's written songs about how he came to know Jesus and what Jesus has done for him.
Yes, it's amazing just how much we can learn from the lives and testimonies of these individuals, but also for this whole outworking of the gospel, Highway Church. But even with a loan, there are still challenges for people. Just because they have a loan, it doesn't mean then that the going is easy or smooth. There are some real challenges. And I think, Gilbert, you're going to come and just tell us of 3 challenges. If we could have that slide up, Andy. 3 challenges, really, that face people, even with loans.
You know, I've been sitting there and listening to the stories. They're the stories that I wrote, and all the profiles. I wrote the profiles, but today it's like they were new to me. Yeah, it's like they were new, and they came with a freshness that I can't. So there are challenges. It has not been smooth running all through. When we give out the loans, what we do is we let the people understand that this money is little. It is a seed. And usually when you're planting, you plant little. Scripture talks of the mustard seed. It's little, and if you are diligent and do the right things, what happens? You are promised a big harvest. So we tell them, you can either, if you plant well, you'll get something good, but you can also eat it. So in our terms and conditions, we tell them that this money is not for school fees, it's not for health bill or for leisure. But even as they go out, they find that because of the level of, I wouldn't call it poverty as such, but their needs, they're those basic ones that the individuals would want settled first. So part of the money somehow just goes away. So they start their business, part of that capital, the loan itself, it's like has been eaten off. And so when they come to start repaying, you can see the struggle. You can see the sacrifice they are making in paying out the loan. So actually, that's one of the challenges, the existing pressing needs. Another problem is that most of us do not know how to handle money. So even as they do their businesses, without proper financial management, money just going through their hands, using money not having priorities, the right priorities, so that in the end you find them not being able to pay their loans as it is required. So we had the opportunity to meet Graham, and we talked to him and told him because he's one who will be visiting the country. So we told him to arrange a seminar with the loan groups, the various loan groups, so that he can teach them on, I would call it the debt management. Yeah, how to be able to plan for their money. And again, the country's economy is not doing good. When we started this initiative, that is 2018, things appeared good. But when we crossed over to 2019, something happened. At the beginning of the year, we'd ask people, why are you not paying? And they would tell us they have the money, but no supply. The supply. And then as the year progressed, things kind of changed. They had the supply, but nobody was buying. And we, just before we came, we told people